Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
This just in, Jingle Bells, Batman Smells.
Oh my god. We've got Chris.
I don't have anything. Happy holidays, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. What a nice greeting. Hello, I'm Kia. Welcome to the show. Merry Christmas. It's time for our annual Christmas episode.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. That's right. I'm not even a Christian. I don't care.
Neither
whatever.
is Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, that's right. Neither is Kitty Pryde. But Christmas is the overwhelming majority holiday for whatever, and I just accept it. I don't give a shit. But Hanukkah's there too. We got some. What other seasons?
We got Ramadan. We got Happy New Year. We got Thanksgiving.
Happy New Year, yeah. There's a lot of stuff.
The solstice. And
there's so much going on this time of year. We couldn't figure out what to read, so we're actually reading two little things. We're reading something from Marvel and something from DC. Well, look how inclusive we're being! Wow, happy comic book holidays, everybody!
Happy crossover-miss.
Happy crossover-miss. Yeah,
Xmas.
The Marvel fans were demanding that we say Happy DC. The DC fans were demanding we say Happy Marvel, and we say no. Happy comics in general to everybody. So we first we're going to talk a little bit about an X-Men issue from the early 80s. It's a Christmas special, Uncanny X-Men 143. And then we're going to talk about Gotham Central from the early 2000s. A little bit of everything. So I think we should just jump right into it. Uncanny X-Men number 143. This was during the Chris Claremont era, sort of after the we talked way back when about some X-Men with Giant Size X-Men with a new team joining, like Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, all those folks. And he wrote for 100, 200 issues, 300 issues, 8,000 issues, something like that. I don't know.
Decades.
But he went on and on. Decades and decades.
Yeah, from 1975 until 1991, I think.
Just purely on Uncanny, but then he was given like his own like kind of corner of the X-Men after that, right? Through like what, 05-ish?
I mean, yeah, he never left. I guess he's finally gone now, but yeah, it's he's been around a while. And so this issue is a 1981, so I guess about 5 or 6 years after he took over, and the team is still fairly close to that core team of new folks that have been around. You've still got Cyclops. He kind of never left. Jean Grey has died at this point. You've got Wolverine. You've got Storm. You've got Colossus. You've also got Kitty Pryde, who has very recently joined the team. I think she's not even going by Shadowcat at this point. She calls herself Sprite still, right?
Right. I don't even know, if she has an official code name at this point. They just call her Kitty all the time. That's
right. Yeah, I think I saw Sprite somewhere in the book at one point, and I was like, oh, yeah, I always forget that name was around at some point. Mm-hmm. But this issue is all about her being alone in the X-Mansion for the holidays. Everybody has left, and they say, yeah, we'll leave this new girl alone. I'm sure she'll be fine.
So why does everybody leave? I know she mentions it's Hanukkah. Does everybody else go home for Christmas, but she doesn't go home?
They don't really give very much of a reason for a lot of these other folks. I know... Banshee says that, I got to go meet with my lady. I probably won't be back till after Valentine's Day. Or no, Easter, he says. But I think he's the only one who gave like a very specific explanation. I don't really remember many others.
Well, I know Wolverine's girlfriend shows up and then Nightcrawler, because he's European, tries to kiss her and Wolverine tries to cut off his head. And then he's like, sorry, I kind of lost my head. I'm like, I lost my cool. Sorry, Nightcrawler. And I'm like, Nightcrawler could be dead, guys.
Wolverine.
That's not something we just be like, I just lost my temper for a little bit. We're cool, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that Wolverine. It was also it's very nice to just see Wolverine bringing his girlfriend around. That's very, it's not something you see very often.
He puts on a nice coat with 4 pockets.
Yeah, very nice.
Yep. It's his classic cowboy look. The first scene when the X-Men went to Japan, which is where his girlfriend was introduced.
That's right, Mariko. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, they don't really tell you exactly where Nightcrawler is going. Colossus, I don't know where he was going. Yeah, none of it really matters. They just leave, and Kitty's alone to spend Hanukkah all by herself.
I mean, basically, it comes down to everyone has Christmas plans or like, relationship plans, except for Kitty.
Because she's a loser. And the little prologue for this issue is all about how, I guess, way back when, like in issue 90 or somewhere roundabouts there, the X-Men had fought a bunch of demons. And for whatever reason, we see Storm at the tail end of this fight, fighting some demon, getting home barely by the skin of her teeth. And guess what? These demons are coming back, or at least one in particular. What were these things called? I forget the name of them.
Xenomorphs.
Yeah, they look just like xenomorphs.
They're called the Nagari.
Nagari. Oh, that's a terrible name. I didn't say it out loud as I was reading it. Boy.
Whoa. Just call him Xenomorph. It starts with this NX.
Xenomorph. There we go. Yeah.
No, Nagari.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, that sounds worse.
No, it doesn't. But yeah, that was, I think, the third story arc with the new X-Men, because the first one was that island, and then the second one was the guy that would later go on to get like superpowers and fight the Avengers, and then Thunderbird died, and then the third
those animal people, yeah.
And then the third one is this one, these demon guys that fight Cyclops and Storm.
So the demon guys are back, and Kitty is all alone. She's, kind of new to this whole thing, but this issue is kind of all about her, kind of holding her own well enough, exploring her powers a little bit, kind of exploring this demon. There's not a whole lot of specifics to talk about. It's just constantly her getting away from this thing, finally getting to the Blackbird.
Which at the beginning of the issue, Professor X was making sure that she knew the schematics of the Blackbird. And this is something that, like, the other X kids are all like, yeah, we had to go through that too when we started here. Why is Professor X teaching all the kids about how to fly a fighter jet? I mean, there's this, like, I love the undercurrent of, and I think it's explored, like, in modern X-Men, of, like, Professor X was making a paramilitary force, right? Because, like, I like the idea of, like, in Logan, the movie, or in Wolverine and the X-Men, that there's a bunch of, like, just chubby kids who are mutants. Like, they're not good athletes at all.
Right.
They're just, like, chubby kids who just happen to have powers. And the whole point of the school is, let's make you, like, be able to deal with your powers, and, like, so you don't kill everybody, don't kill yourself, and, like, you can become a functioning person and maybe benefit society with your powers. But Kitty's like, I don't know why they're fucking making me work out all the time. Like, I'm already fit. Like, I just need to learn how to use
powers. I'll be fine.
Like, and it flies in the face of, like, my concept of, like, she's like, I'm basically like a female Arnold Schwarzenegger already. Like, I don't need to do this. Which is also a weird reference for 81.
She jokes about that. She's like, she says that, at this rate, they want me to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger because she's very skinny is the joke.
I think, it just has me thinking, though. I want to write a series called Indoor Mutants and see what comes of it. I think that'd be great. But Kitty, like, she does a really great job of kind of running away, like, testing this thing's abilities, because it just kind of shows up out of nowhere. And she's like, oh my god, what is it? It's chasing her. At one point, it takes a swipe at her, and she kind of phases, but it still hurts her even in phased form. Like, it kind of affects her on a deeper sort of level. They don't really explore that very much afterwards.
Except she can't use her right hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume it's because it's like a demon, so it has some kind of magical powers.
But apparently it heals just fine. They don't really bring it up again. But she finally gets to the Blackbird, where she has to repeat exactly what Professor Xavier drilled into her. And she fires up the Blackbird, and it shoots like its jet of flames out at this thing, and it burns. But is it dead? At the very last second, we see this hand reach out, and it's like, oh no, what's going on? And we kind of cut to the team coming back home. They're like, oh, something doesn't feel right, blah, blah, blah. But no, Kitty's fine. And we kind of jump back and see that, no, the thing was dead. It was just like its final little ashes burned into the ground. And that's it.
But it ends kind of like Home Alone, like, what the fuck happened to this house? Oh, it was just a fun
Storm's like, what
weekend.
happened to my room? Hey, what's going on here?
Buzz is the same way, like, Kevin!
Yeah. It is a very Home Alone issue. The danger room, like she kind of sets it up to be a little bit of a trap thing. It's not like super trappy or like silly like that, but it does have that air of a Home Alone sort of thing.
I liked it though. It was a nice, simple story.
Nice.
The back half of it felt very similar to Alien to me. I like John Byrne's art a lot.
Yeah, John Byrne's art always great.
I really like the art design. I don't know why I'm really starting to get into heroes that have their eyes with a lot of skin shown throughout their mask, unlike Batman, but like Flash. You can see the skin, under his eyes. Kitty is drawn really well in this book, where you can see like her face under her mask. I really like that.
The faces just end up being a lot more expressive when they show more like that. I think it works very well. Mm-hmm. There's also, I think, one of my favorite little moments at the very end. When Colossus comes back, he has Kitty's parents with him. And she's like, Mom, Dad, you grew a beard. All right, cool. Dad grew a beard. Awesome.
Good stuff.
Interesting.
Also, she's really into Colossus and kisses him, and then later mentions being 13, and I'm like, ooh, I wish they wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, because he's at least like 17, right?
Yeah, I mean, for as much narration as it's not like she's a beautiful 13, or anything like that, at least.
That's true. It doesn't, I mean, she's a very well-defined character, but I wish she was like 15 and he was like 16, that's one thing. But he's like an adult and she's a kid.
Honestly, Vince, until you brought up that they were kids earlier, I kind of just forget that they're all kids because they don't act like kids. They just act like people. I just kind of wish that whole part of the X-Men mythos was just gone. Like, I don't need them to be kids.
They are like OCCW teenagers, where they're basically adults.
So even though, I think Nightcrawler and Colossus are supposed to be like 17 or 18, they're basically adults. Like, they don't have kid problems.
Yeah. It's, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, it seems weird.
And then, like, Storm isn't a kid. And then Wolverine is like, I mean, they don't know how old he is at this point, but he's depicted as being like middle-aged, even though he's insane.
Oh, Wolverine.
I mean, he's still like the toddler of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it, and I feel like it's hard to separate from like the larger context, which we didn't talk about it a lot, but like this issue, they just finished the death of Jean Grey, and then the Days of Future Past storyline was like the first story arc that Kitty Pryde was involved in. So, and then this is the next issue after that. So it's like those are very like big, important issues that everybody remembers. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of like a everybody takes a break, and then Kitty Pryde has to fight a monster. So it's a down issue. But it's still, I think, really good, and it fits into the bigger whole of, you learn a lot about her character, whereas she's, really new at this point and, becomes an important X-Men.
Yeah, I always like little one-shot stories like this in between big arcs. I think they're, they're necessary. It slows things down. You don't see as many one-shots like this anymore, so I like it. But yeah, let's. I think we're ready to move on to Gotham Central.
Chris, I actually just wanted to have one question. I noticed that the cover was inked by Terry Austin, but the font looked like Terry Dodson. Is that Terry Dodson who inked this book like in the early '80s of the Dodsons?
No, that would have been before his time.
Okay, so Terry Dodson's a guy. Okay. Yeah, because it's like written big on the cover, and it's Terry Austin. It looks the exact same font, and I can't like find a good way to figure it out like online if that's the same person or not. Like
no, it's definitely Terry Austin. I see it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is Rachel Dodson. Okay.
Yeah, Rachel Dodson is the wife of the penciler Dodson. That's a guy.
Okay.
They're a duo. But no, it wouldn't have been then. It was like 1990 or so.
Okay.
That, they got the husband got his start, and then his wife, I don't remember her maiden name. Anyway.
No, I'm always surprised when people like are like, in comics way longer than I thought they were, like Butch Guice. And so I was wondering.
Butch Guice is the classic example where he's in like 1982 books, and you're like, really? What?
Yeah. And so I was like, man, maybe this is another person I'm just like not aware of, but I guess I'm wrong. Oh. Mm-hmm. There you go.
No, nobody will ever care about inking as much as Vince will.
Mm-hmm. Certainly not lettering as much as I do.
Boy, you and your lettering, man. But I will say, it's some really nice lettering in this. I like the way that the title of this issue was lettered, Demon. It was sort of like big in the background with this nice. I mean, it wasn't really lettered; it was drawn over the whole thing, but it had a very nice sort of creepy title coming in.
Yeah, I mean, John Byrne probably drew that, but it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, doesn't count as lettering. I just had to bring it up. So let's jump over to Gotham Central now. Gotham Central came out early 2000s, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly when, but
it ended with Infinite Crisis, didn't it? The whole book.
Yeah, right around there. But it is a cool little series about the cops of Gotham. It was created by.
It's a perfect series. It is a perfect.
All right.
Aside from its last 3 issues where it has a crossover with Infinite Crisis, and then it's not so good. But it is a perfect series.
It's created by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, probably most well known for a lot of their crime comics. I mean, they've both done plenty of superhero stuff as well.
Yeah, Ed Brubaker created The Winter Soldier, wrote the Captain America Winter Soldier. That's probably his most well-known mainstream comics work. Criminal.
He also had a really good run on Batman around this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. He did that. He did a great run of Catwoman with Cameron Stewart and Darwin Cook.
That was way too short. It was like 12 issues, but it was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. And then Greg Rucka has done like a lot of Wonder Woman. What else has he done? He writes Lazarus now. He wrote Queen and Country, a independent comic I really liked. He wrote the book Whiteout, which was a Kate Beckinsale movie I forgot in 2009. And he's a pretty good writer. He jumps to writing Wonder Woman off and on. I think he just finished another run. And then he did the Batwoman run recently also with the New 52 and then a little before that.
Mm-hmm. But a lot, like anytime they do indie comics, I always kind of know exactly what it's going to be like. It's almost always just like kind of regular cop type characters solving crimes, things like that. And they do, I mean, that's kind of right up their alley. And so they decided to put an idea together that was all about the cops of Gotham and kind of them dealing with the Batman and all these heroes and what does that mean to them. And it is really good stuff. The first arc is about like Mr. Freeze is like out and about. He just like kills a random cop while they're out searching for stuff. The second arc.
Yeah, it does. It just does a really great job of making the villains scary.
Yeah,
in a way that like
because it's like you're never scared for Batman because you're like, no, Batman will be fine. But then like, okay, no, there's a regular guy.
Yeah, like some regular guys were just doing like a normal call, like just kind of like these cops, we're trying to figure out something, knock on some doors, and they accidentally knock on the wrong door, and it's Mr. Freeze there, and the dude just freezes his hand off, and you're like, oh fuck, like Mr. Freeze, this joke character, really, after 50, 80 years of being in comics, you're like,
it's still scary.
Mr. Freeze is scary. And then the way it's drawn by like Michael Lark and Stefano Gaudiano, it's just like, they just do like this real kind of like realistic art style that makes like Freeze injuries look like real dangerous. And this book, particularly Soft Targets, is the 3rd or 4th arc that we're looking at. And this one is really well done. It actually has a lot of it has a lot of parallels to the original Joker story and a lot of the Dark Knight in terms of just its kind of structure.
It does, yeah. So this is issues 12 through 15. And again, it's right before Christmas. And again, I want to touch on something you said. A lot of times it is mostly regular people walking around in regular clothes. So when a villain does show up, it's a little bit jarring. And it's like, whoa, something's going on here. And so this one, it kind of starts with the new commissioner. It's not Jim Gordon. It's Michael something or other. He's meeting with the mayor. With Michael Higgins? Is that
Akins?
It?
It's hard to keep track of. Everybody's normal dudes in suits, and so all the white guys look the same and kind of blend together in my head.
The commissioner. The commissioner's meeting with the mayor. And talking about overtime, blah blah blah, that sort of thing.
Which is actually really interesting that a mainstream comic is like, and you think like, oh yeah, like this is a story about regular dudes, and this is it's kind of mildly explaining why a lot of the cops in Gotham are corrupt. It's because their budget's cut, and they want overtime, and just kind of like, and the mayor's thinking about cutting their overtime, and you're like, this is just like, it's a nice slice of life conversation in the real world of like a superheroes. You almost forget that you're reading a superhero comic. And then
which is the thing, is sort of the point. It is just sort of how to I always love stories like that. How do real people react to the world of superheroes, which is it's always interesting to me.
Well, and it's better than like it's different than like Marvel's, where everybody's like looking to the sky and like everybody's like, or Windsor McKay or whatever his name was in Kingdom Come, everybody's always looking to the sky like, look at the superheroes, look at the superheroes. They're kind of like, I'm trying to live my fucking life here. And Batman and Joker and Mr. Freeze are having some bullshit game that's getting people killed. I
love at the end of the first arc with Mr. Freeze, one of the cops really hates Batman. And after, he has this conversation where he basically just yells at Batman because he's pissed that his partner died or that somebody else on the force died. And he's like, look, I'm going to keep working until this town doesn't need Batman to like bail it out. And Batman's like, good, do that.
This arc, it all starts with them at the office. They're talking, and a sniper kills the mayor. And you're like, oh, holy shit, things just got very real very fast. They're dealing with this thing.
And then like a page
4
or
days
two
for Christmas.
And a page or two later, you just see like the dead body of the superintendent in the middle of a schoolyard.
Another sniper fire has killed another guy. Yeah,
that image is the one that gets me because it's like snowed, and so everybody's like, "Fuck, get inside!" Because there's a sniper. So there's just a dead body, in the middle of the snow, in the middle of a.
They're like, "But we got to take care of this and investigate it before the snow covers it." Like, holy shit! It's crazy, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?"
Well, and this was also written right around the time of the DC Sniper. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of years later, but yeah, it definitely reminded me of that.
Like that seems to be like conscious. Like the DC Sniper was fucking scary shit. It's just a dude like driving around in a car, just shooting people and then just driving off. And so like that's where it's like, oh, this is like just a real situation. And the point where I'm like, I don't know how Batman's gonna solve this problem at all. Like these cops just got to figure out this problem, and it's scary because like nobody can go outside, and you don't know where this sniper is.
Right. And it's an interesting situation because Commissioner Gordon isn't there. And so like, even though the bat signal is there, like they're not on like, a classic Batman, like he doesn't pick up the bat phone and be like, Batman, like who's shooting these people? What? Like they aren't working directly with Batman.
Well, go ahead.
One of the things that comes up pretty often throughout the series is this idea of the bat signal and how they are not technically allowed to use it because then they're officially recognizing that Batman is like an agent of the city, and then supervillains will sue them because of that, and so they always have to have this like essentially this intern go up to the roof and turn on the bat signal because she's not technically a city employee. And it's such a very interesting wrinkle in the whole story. That's like, okay, hey, get the intern, go turn on the bat signal.
I love that, and I love that like most of the cops hate calling the bat signal because it means that they failed. Like it basically means like I'm not good enough at my job, so I have to call in this like rogue person who I don't know to solve all my problems. Like that's fucking embarrassing. Like that's legit embarrassing, and just like also like super complicated. And I love that the book questions that. It's just really cool. I really like this book.
By the end of the first issue, they've realized who is behind all these sniper attacks, and it is the Joker. They like find a bunch of some laptop where the sniper's nest was, and there's like Joker for mayor and like stupid joke like paid for by like lots of random weird
jokes on you
stuff.
something. But it's got one of the best final pages in comics to me. Like a cliffhanger page, because they go to turn on the bat signal, and then the sniper shoots out the bat signal, and Batman swoops down and covers the intern so she doesn't get shot, and he looks at somebody and he goes, "It's Joker," and then that's where it ends, and you're like, "Oh shit, it is on!" Like this is like real. Like the Joker is like probably the scariest he's ever been to me in comics. Because he's just like...
Yeah, you always picture the Joker coming up with like these kind of crazy, weird ideas, but the Joker with a gun is just a very, like, it's very unsettling, yeah.
He's unpredictable with the gun. And I mean, this is very similar to like the Joker's first appearance where he tells everybody he's going to kill a different person each night, which we read like,
way back
ago.
when, yeah.
Batman #1, which also Brubaker wrote Batman the Man Who Laughs, which was a retelling of that issue. So it seems very similar to that in that same regard.
Right. And I don't really like the trend in comics of making Joker like this, like uber, like master planner, he's the greatest villain ever kind of thing. But at the same time, I do think this works because it's like, yeah, he's a clown who's just murdering people. Like this is terrifying.
Well, it's not like it's not like tools or anything. It's just like simple, low tech. It's not even like a big plan. It's like I'm going to shoot one person a day. Super low tech. It's not like big machinations like this will force this person to do this, and then this will happen, and then this will happen, and that's what I really meant.
It's like very simple, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
And when like later when we actually see the Joker in person, like it just kind of fits the character very well. We'll get to that. So what the Joker ends up doing though is he puts out these video feeds saying like, oh, here's 8 different video feeds, and there's a countdown saying, oh, okay, somebody else is going to die. And so there's like all these video cameras, and you're like, oh my gosh. And the cops are going out looking for this thing. They're finding all these like duds, no cameras, just laptops set up. And finally the cameras, they count down to the end, and it's just like a picture of a gun on screen, like bang. And nothing happens, and it starts counting up, and you're like, oh, Jesus, fucking... But it is perfectly in line with the Joker. Like, no, yeah, he's just gonna fucking do whatever, because he's crazy. But there is a TV reporter that all the cops fucking hate. What is her name? They keep talking about her.
Angie Montoya? No, not Angie Montoya.
No, not Montoya.
Yeah, not Montoya.
Yeah, Montoya is one of the cops. Angie... something or other. It doesn't matter. But they're always talking about like, oh my God, she's terrible. Somebody should shut her up. I hope she dies, blah, blah, blah. But the Joker kidnaps her and has a video camera on her. Only the cops are seeing this. Nobody else is seeing it. And they're like, oh, well, shit, we should probably find her. But then the Joker just walks right up to a cop and turns himself in. And it's like, okay. And we kind of have to talk a little bit about public opinion at this point. Like, they were all scared. Like, what's going on? There's a lot of political stuff in this comic, not just in this arc, but throughout the whole thing. Of like, we have to do this stuff for appearances. We have to make sure everything's looking good. But the city is scared. Like, people are staying inside because there is a sniper out there. Yeah. But now the Joker finally turns himself in. Okay, cool. Go out, do your Christmas shopping. Everything's fine now, I guess. Which kind of leads us towards the end of this whole thing where, okay, now it's 2 days till Christmas. Everybody's doing their Christmas shopping. Uh-oh, that's exactly what the Joker wanted. And they realize that this reporter, Angie, not reporter, a TV anchor person, whatever, is being held captive inside one of these toy stores. And so that's what he's planning on blowing up. They manage to save the day, get everyone out as it blows up. And that's,
well, and there's also a terrifying scene because the Joker is, getting police brutality'd. And you're like, well, that makes sense. Yeah. You're like, maybe the Joker will break, and then the Joker flips the table on one of the cops, and basically beats the shit out of the cop, manages to break out, get another gun, and shoot more cops inside the station. And again, when it's the Joker against real people, and there's no Batman to be found, the Joker is very scary.
He almost kills that intern as well. That intern, she's a good character.
Right,
Yes.
which he even admits, he's like, I really have to leave, and there's no reason for me to do this. But I tried to shoot you earlier, and Batman saved you, so I feel like I should kill you now.
Well, and it's also just interesting, like even throughout that whole sequences of finding like those 7 or 8 cameras, like this is a Batman plot that the cops are also trying to do. Like the Joker doesn't care about the Gotham police force. This is a thing purely for Batman's benefit, you know? Mm-hmm. And I love that about this, you know, that like there's a whole other Batman story happening here that we're not privy to.
That we just don't see, yeah.
Right.
And just seeing the way the Joker just talks during these police interrogations and how it just sort of fits with his like, oh, I'm crazy and blah, blah, blah. I have this present wrapped up for Batman. Like, oh, it's not ready yet, though. It'll be ready soon, that kind of thing. It just sort of fits in very nicely with his whole persona. It's a pretty perfect Joker comic.
Mm-hmm. I wish the Joker wouldn't be on the cover of the trade collections, because I think that first issue, I didn't see it coming when I read the issues. Just an issue
and that first issue cover is really, I mean, it's the kind of thing where you don't even really understand what you're looking at first, because it's just the sniper rifle coming out of a window.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's you can't see anyone. So when you're first looking at it, you're like, it's a building. Like, what am I looking at? Like, at least for me, it takes a second to be like, oh, like that's not just like a flagpole or something coming out of the building. Like that's a sniper rifle.
Yeah, this is a great book. It's just like Soft Targets is just it's probably one of my favorite Joker stories, if not my favorite Joker story.
Ooh,
I don't know if that's a hot take.
I don't think so. I think it's really good. I mean, I think it's right up there with like the classics, like the Laughing Fish and like the ones that really defined him as like he's a murderer but also like a clown man. Like those are the best to me. Not the ones where he's just like, well, I killed 100 people.
Yeah,
like. That's just kind of
hubba. Who do you love? Money.
Yeah, that guy. So yeah, this is good stuff. It surprises me. A lot of people to this day still just kind of don't remember Gotham Central, haven't heard of it, haven't read it. It's worth going back. It's just kind of one of those evergreens. Always,
it really is super evergreen, especially because like it exists out of time. Because I think Jim Gordon's back in Batman comics, so this is like a point where he had retired, and it doesn't know enough about like where Batman continuity is, so it doesn't really matter. There's great arcs in this. My favorite arc, the one that got this is my favorite arc, but the one that got me in was a little later, called Dead Robin, where somebody, a black-haired kid in a Robin costume, shows up dead, and you're like, is this Robin? I don't know. We also think there have probably been 5 or 6 Robins, because they grow up, they're different ages. So the cops kind of know that there was a Tim Drake and a Dick Grayson, but they also don't know who's Robin. And, and they're trying to figure out, like, is this the real Robin? We can't really bring in Batman for questioning, although he is now a person of interest. And it's just like a really interesting scene to see how, like, real cops would work their way through this situation.
Or it's like the Teen Titans are publicly available, or I guess the Titans at that point are publicly available, but Batman isn't.
Yeah.
So they can't get kind of a straight answer about what's going on. That's great. We didn't deal with kind of the day-to-day of this comic that much, but I do think it's really good. There's a lot of character stuff that's going on that really pays off as you're reading it. I really like a lot of these characters. There's some that you're not supposed to like, that I think are still very interesting characters, where they're just kind of like, there's asshole characters that are cops, and then there's some better characters, and there's some good drama, back and forth where, it's like, damn it, he's a good cop kind of stuff. Like Lieutenant Probson, who looks like Norman Osborn or Harry Osborn or one of them.
Yeah,
like he's
basically
having like he's on the verge of a mental breakdown through this. Like he almost gets shot by the Joker, and then the Joker surrenders to him. And then he's so pissed off about what's going on that he's like, he basically gives his commanding officer his badge to be like, don't worry, I'll abuse this suspect in custody.
Yeah.
And then the Joker beats the shit out of him, so puts him in the hospital.
Yeah. So exactly. I get so many of the characters confused though, because a lot of them are just like white guys in suits. between like that, and there's a nighttime crew and a daytime crew, and I think that's how like Rucka and Brubaker like alternated writing this book. Because there's Driver and there's Romy and there's Montoya and Allen and Probson and Corrigan, and it's just so many people to keep track of.
There are. I think, yeah, eventually I kind of got the hang of sort of figuring out who they were by this arc. As we were sort of gearing up for this, I wanted to refresh myself, so I read all the first few leading up to this. And I'm glad I did, because it did help sort of fill in a lot of their backstories a little bit. But it's, again, a lot of those personal relationships aren't super central to the plot of this particular storyline.
They're really rewarding.
Right, it is very rewarding as you keep reading through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially the ending of the story, which is, they're just like, this is, they, at the end of the day, they saved this reporter. The officer that was there is saved by Batman. And they're like, it's a very, on the one hand, they caught the Joker, they did everything, but it still feels like a loss because their coroner had her hand blown off. This lieutenant is in the hospital because the Joker beat the shit out of him. And they're just like, yeah, that's, this is about as good as we can do. It's like, this isn't fair or right, but it's just like, this is the reality. So it's a very, kind of sad book to read for Christmas, but it's really good.
Yeah. And Kia, I think this runs in like stark contrast to what your problem with Shadows of the Empire, Star Wars was last episode. We're like, I know nothing's going to happen to Luke and Leia and,
Right.
And this, like, because it's all real people and they don't give a shit about, like, Game of Thronesing, I'm like, they'll kill any character or blow off their hand or cripple them or have them get transferred.
Except maybe Montoya. You feel like Montoya is like the one where you're like, well, they're not going to kill her.
Well, but at the same time, like, you don't know exactly what will happen to her because there's so much.
But Montoya's also like getting blackmailed because they blackmailed into forcing coming out through this stuff. Like, she has stakes. And Alan ends up becoming the Spectre. Fans of modernish DC may recognize like Maggie Sawyer from this. I think she was in Batwoman, right? Captain Sawyer?
Yeah, I think she dated Batwoman.
Yeah. So I think and Chris Allen ended up being Spectre for a brief point, and Montoya ended up being the Question for a while. So they ended up all getting superpowers, which kind of, I think, kind of turned lame for them.
Weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one interesting thing that I found. One of the police captains she's like a blonde woman with short hair.
Right.
And towards the end,
that's Maggie Sawyer from Batwoman.
That's okay. But towards the end, like they say, was it like this when you worked in Metropolis, where with Superman, did you feel like he was always like there to help you, or is it like it kind of brought up interesting thing? I was like, wait a minute, I've been watching a lot of old DC animated stuff, and in the Superman animated series, she shows up pretty regularly. I was like, oh, that's her.
Oh, cool.
Very nice. It kind of made me happy. Just
she I think was in when they relaunched Superman in like 88 or 80, in the late 80s. She was a character from the Superman comics, and then so she's in the cartoon, and then she comes to Gotham, and so it's an interesting. I think it's really cool that Brubaker, and I guess also Rucka, but it feels more like Brubaker to me, has that respect for this like mostly forgotten storyline from 1989 or whatever of this Maggie Sawyer character.
It is always nice. The digger you deep, the more you dig deep into like comics and stuff, and you see all these old random names and stuff. We fairly recently rewatched The Dark Knight Rises. And what's that guy? Daggett, the one guy who's sort of like working with Bane, shows up a lot in the Batman animated series as well. Like, it's kind of it's very interesting to see all these names just keep on popping up here and there.
Didn't Montoya?
They keep using them.
Didn't Montoya show up first in TA and Batman animated series?
Yeah, Montoya was originally created for the animated series and then got put into the comics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another tie into just like Harley Quinn from our episode that we talked about way back when.
I think I'd be also remiss if not mentioning that the TV show Gotham feels like it wanted to be Gotham Central and then just decided not to be.
Yeah, and then just went off every rail.
Like, it seems like, like, okay, cool, we're going to do like a show about the Gotham City PD. dealing with Batman's rogue gallery, and Batman will be on the super, super periphery. But they can't resist having a plot line about Bruce Wayne as a kid. And I'm just and because this show is mostly from the POV of the cops. You don't really see what the villains are up to. You don't see what Batman's up to ever. So you don't see villains making machinations or anything like that.
Well, you kind of do see mob bosses machinations in that show.
I guess that's true.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, in the TV show especially, but I was excited for hearing about the TV show. I was like, cool. Like they're gonna do Gotham Central. That's a perfect book to make into a serial TV show. Yeah, although really and truly, I don't know how sustainable it is because Gotham Central is only 38 issues and only has about 6 or 7 arcs. I don't know how long if you could have kept this going for hundreds of issues.
I think you could have, because it is sort of about the developing relationships of the cops. I guess that's
true. And you could
find a random thing for them, yeah.
And you could float in new employees all the time. I guess that's true.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what the secret to all of those, NCIS and NYPD Blue and all those shows have always been somebody dies because they are leaving the show. And now the show is about these people, that stuff always has. So, Renee Montoya would become the Question and then leave the show, and then Jim Gordon would come back.
Yeah.
Vince, I am glad you brought up the Shadows of the Empire thing, because it does make you realize, if you want to tell stories about these things, and, you have to create other characters for people to care about and develop, and if you can't do that, then I'm not going to care about your book, because it just doesn't matter.
It's either going to be that, or they got to be characters that are super fun to hang out with, like Peter Parker. That's
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's it. That's Christmas with Gotham Central PD and Christmas with the X-Men.
Very good. This was a good Christmas episode. This is good. The last few episodes, we'd written stuff that we weren't too high on, so I'm glad we got to read some stuff we liked. Next time, I think something that I feel like I'm really going to like, something that I have never read. I don't know if you guys have read it before, but we are going to do some Jim Starlin again. We're going to go a little bit further back. We've been reading a lot of his sort of Infinity War, Thanos stuff. We read some of his Warlock stuff way back when. We are going to read a comic called The Death of Captain Marvel from 1982.
I wonder what happens.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler alert, right on the cover, man. No, but this thing is pretty important for a number of reasons. Most importantly, it was Marvel's first graphic novel. And I mean, nowadays we kind of think all comic books and graphic novels, same thing, just different ways to say it. Back then, Marvel decided, okay, no, we're going to put out these big one-shots, like special issues. They're not single issues. They're a little bit bigger. They're going to be dealing with some slightly more mature themes. And so this was like a series. It was the Marvel graphic novel series that would just come out kind of randomly every now and then. I think issue number 5 was God Loves, Man Kills, a kind of important X-Men issue.
That's really good. That's where that comes from. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. There was a bunch of random stuff that came out throughout the years, but the very first
a lot of stuff they don't have the license for anymore.
Yeah. There's some random stuff. Well, maybe we'll dig through those graphic novels and talk about them through that issue and just look for some of the random ones. But the very first one was The Death of Captain Marvel, which was all written, drawn by Jim Starlin. You can guess what happens, but this is the original Captain Marvel, the very first one. Marvel, the Kree warrior. I've never read this. Chris, have you read this?
I've read it once, but it was a long time ago, so I'll have to refresh my memory about it.
I'm excited. Get us warmed up for the Captain Marvel movie coming out eventually here. Look forward to it. Great. Well, I think with that, we're coming up on Christmas Eve. Oh my God! Look at the time. In 10 seconds, it's going to be Christmas Day. Should we do a countdown? No. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a nice night. We'll see you later.
Happy holidays.
Enjoy your eggnog. Happy holidays. And we're done here. Bye.